Hello and welcome to Stand Up for Change. Today I've got an amazing guest, Kim Brady, in the house, everybody. And I'm going to tell you, you need to connect with this lady. She is a fractional small business coach. She's one of my outlier sisters with the Outlier Project. She's a partner with our nonprofit, and she is a 2 times author and an incredible human being. Let's give it up for Kim Brady. I always ask this question, the first question for every guest. It's always the same. And I want to know if there's something that you would share with the audience, whether it's personal or professional, that even if they're following you on social media, they may not know about you.
I am a big dork and I am really, really, really shy. So contrary to, having to be public facing or front facing and having to put content out there, I genuinely love to be the person on the wall observing other people. I'm very curious about people. So I'm very shy. It takes a lot for me to walk up to people, and especially people that I find super I don't know whether it's not that they're famous or whatnot, but people who I really value their opinion and value their brain and value what gifts they bring to the world. I'm super intimidated by people very, very easily, and very shy. And I have to work really hard at getting over that.
So let's talk about your journey. Who is Kim Brady?
So I always like to tell people I'm the person who had no business being in business. So you have to kind of have a little bit of backstory to really understand how the heck I got here. But I am a Southern California native, soccer player, soccer lover, absolutely loved playing the sport my whole life, and was a straight A student and loved school and became a collegiate athlete. And I was privileged enough to go to Berkeley on a full ride scholarship and play there. And in my generation, we knew we weren't going to play professionally. We knew if you were not on the national team, which I was not, you were not going to really be paid to play. And if you wanted to pursue soccer as a career after you competed, you would need to go into coaching, because there were really only other pathways. So I did get licensed as a coach, but that was by accident when I gone to graduate school. So I pursued school with a vigor, and I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist. That was what I really thought I wanted to do as a little girl. I was always the one that everybody talked to, could confide in, that kind of thing. And I want to be a helper. I've always been a helper. And so let me go to school for this. And so I became a family therapist and got my master's degree at the ripe old age of 25. I was in that industry for 7 years, and I was not a couch therapist. So let's clarify. I was in the trenches with people. I worked with severely abused and neglected children and witnessed the worst of what's happened to children. And I lasted for about 7 years and was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not getting paid. My bleeding heart, liberal Kim heart just is getting crushed watching all this happen. And I'm not getting enough money to really survive. And I had been coaching soccer on the side part-time, because we all know that soccer coaches at the time certainly aren't going to get bills paid doing that either. So, broke and exhausted emotionally being a therapist. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was living in Michigan at the time, which was culture shock and a half, being a Californian. And I was like, well, I can't afford to live in California. Colorado sounds good. And I grabbed my car and my cat and my best friend and said, drive me across the country. Let me get somewhere else. And I said, well, I need to learn something. I have people degrees. I'm a people person. I have people degrees. How do I learn how to make money? I need to do something else. So I got into sales, because I was like, I don't know anything about tech. I don't know anything about, I'm not a techie person. I like science, but I'm not in that field. I'm not in healthcare. I'm not in that. Let me do something that allows me to use my people degrees. So I got into different sales positions. Again, a 7-year period of time where I was in multiple sales companies, doing various things. And then ultimately my nephew, I have 4 nieces and nephews, and they're my kiddos, as I call them. And I came home to visit one of my kids, and he was 19 at the time. And my stepsister had an addiction problem, and so did his father, and his dad was never in his life. And so he had been living with these guys and was just had graduated high school, but kind of not knowing what he wanted to do. And you'll appreciate this. He wanted to become a chef. And so I was like, yeah, exactly. And I said, okay, well, do you want to go to culinary school, or would you like to do it more like as an apprentice and learn as you go? And he's like, well, I don't really like school. I'm like, okay, pursue whatever way you want to do it. Do it with a passion. Do something that allows you to kind of want to do something, right? I don't care how you do it. And he looked at me and he goes, Aunt Kim, you're the one that was always pursuing everything and achieved everything you've ever done. And you've been in my corner from day one, but you're really miserable right now. Oh, wow. And I'm like, holy shit. But was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that he called me out like that, but I can because he's my kiddo. And he's like, I want to follow you. I want to believe what you're saying, but you're not happy. So I'm really struggling watching you be unhappy, telling me to do these things that potentially you were doing. And I said, you're right. You're absolutely right. And so I did something most people don't do. I quit my job 2 weeks later in the pursuit of, I will build something and I'll bring my nephew to come live with me. And I thought, I'll build a coffee shop. I've always loved the California vibe of a coffee shop. I'll bring a coffee shop to Denver, a little California vibe to Denver. The kiddo can come live with me and we'll live happily ever after. I'll figure it out. And my financial advisor was like, no. You're not going to do that. It's going to cost you a lot more money. You do not have the money to do it. And she goes, I know you. I know you really well. You want to move back home to California and I won't let you spend your money that way. Go figure it out. Figure something else out. And so during that period of time, if you want to go into that, I can go into that. But during that period of time, I figured out that I was going to have a different pathway, created my own residential housekeeping company over the course of that period of time. Started it 13 years ago this month, in 2010, in the middle of the first recession that we went through, and built that over the course of 10 years and scaled it and sold it 2 days before COVID shut down California in 2020. That was a little nutty. And so after that, I had to figure out what was I going to do when I grew up. And my friends told me to write a book because my story was so bizarre and that I'd never taken a business class before. And I built a company and scaled it and sold it. And that was bizarre to all of us. Hence I said, I'm a dork. I needed to learn how to do it. And I wrote my book and published that in 21. And then my friends are like, okay, now what are you going to do? And they're like, why don't you go back to being a therapist? Why don't you get licensed in California? And I said, I have zero desire to be a therapist. And they're like, well, why are you not getting paid to do the business coaching that you're doing? Everyone is asking you how you built your business. And all you do is tell people how you did it and you're not being paid. And so that was the aha of how can I help other small business owners achieve what I was able to achieve and have an opportunity to do that, because I didn't realize how lucky I was and how rare I was that I had done what I had done. It was just my thing. I didn't know it was kind of an elite thing to do until I did it. And everybody's like, you sold a company. Like, that's a big deal. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm in the middle of COVID. I had no idea it was a big deal. I'm trying to deal with the world. So yeah, that's kind of how I became where I'm at. Hence the conversation of I had no business being in business. Just had a nephew kick me in the face. That's about it.
First book, Get Stuck In, is incredible. Describe that for the viewers and how it came about.
So the phrase comes from soccer. So for the non-soccer, non-football people, in soccer, when you go into a tackle, you have to go in full force. If you go in half-assed, you're going to get hurt. So the phrase is you got to get stuck in. You get stuck in on your tackle. You get stuck in on what you choose to do. So if anyone knows me, they know that I pretty much live and breathe soccer, and everything that I've done, I've gone at full force. So it was when I was going to school, I was headlong into becoming a child psychologist, and I didn't waver from that. When I went into sales, I was going to learn how to be the best salesperson I could be and not lie, cheat, or steal my way down the river and still make sure that I, was living by my own ethos. And then when it came to my business, I quit corporate America with zero safety net and stupidity and was proud that I made it. But I went and got stuck in. I did all of it full force without a safety net. I don't want anyone listening to me thinking that jumping off a cliff without a parachute is the right idea. I just happened to get lucky in how I went about my pursuits, but that's where it comes from. That's where the phrase comes from. I built my business on soccer principles. And what I mean by that is The game of soccer, if you haven't played it, is really a player's game. Coaches are not stopping and doing timeouts. They're not dictating shift changes. They're not doing, we go all out for full 45 minutes. There, you actually have a certain number of subs you're allowed. And then there are times where the game goes into 120 minutes and it truly is dictated by the 22 players on the field of two teams. And that's when you shine. But all the work, all the hard work, all the training is done behind the scenes before game day. And you have to learn to be a good teammate, and you have your captains that you follow. You have a manager, you have a specialty position such as goalkeeper. Business requires that too. You need to have a leader. You also need to have people who work with you and partner with you to get certain things done. And you may have specialists. You may have someone who's just a super technological person and they can get all your tech stuff up behind the scenes, right? And the idea person may be the manager or the CEO. And so I just took these concepts and was like, who can I fit in these roles that I need to have a successful championship team? Because I wanted to build a company with team in mind. I wanted to be a leader people wanted to follow. And so I just used soccer principles to do that.
So what's one thing that you would like for people to take away from Get Stuck In?
It's choose yourself, bet on yourself, because the concept of get stuck in is you deciding. And if you look at the Latin root of the word decide, it means to cut off. That's what it means. And so decide, choose yourself, choose your idea, go after it. Yes, you're going to change your idea over time, or yes, you're going to have someone tell you no. My financial advisor told me no to the coffee shop. She didn't tell me no to betting on myself. She said, go ahead and bet on yourself, but choose you, choose your passion. So you have to have a belief in yourself that you'll figure it out, and that you put people around you to help you figure it out. Because business is not a one-person show. I don't care whether you're a solopreneur or not. Business is the biggest team sport you can ever do. And 13 years this month that I'm in entrepreneurship, I have more help from people, including yourself, that I can imagine that I'm getting support from. So business, you have to choose yourself first. Yeah.
Good for you.
And I teach people in my book. It's not just my story of how I did it. I bring entrepreneurship to the underdog, to the person who didn't have all the money, who didn't have mommy and daddy paying for everything, who didn't have a spouse or a partner paying for everything, who couldn't get an SBA loan because they're a brand newbie. You know, you can't get funding most of the time. It's not for the people chasing angel investing. I don't know how to do that. I didn't do that. I did it with sweat equity. So my book is really for the person who doesn't have a lot of that behind the scenes, but they have the willingness to do it.
So let's talk about your second book you co-authored, Forever Athlete.
If I got up, I could go show you that copy, but Forever Athlete is a collaborative project that was done it's the concept of no matter whether we compete for our sport or not, if we were a competitive athlete, collegiate or amateur or pro, we never lose that part of us. And it's about what are the lessons that we learned and how good, bad, ugly, and in between. And there's 18 of us, and we each share a chapter in our life, and we're a chapter in the book about what our sport and our athleticism and what our experiences were. And there's some heart-wrenching stories in there, and there's some really empowering stories in there. And you know, my portion was how crucial it was for me to come out as a lesbian when I did as a teenager. And I've been out for over 35 years and witnessing and seeing all the changes culturally and all that stuff, and how powerful it was to be sitting in my truth at a young age, at the same time that I was competing and playing soccer, and I could become myself through school, etc. So my chapter was really not about the forever athlete now, of I wouldn't be who I am now without that. I wouldn't be who I am without it.
What would you like for people to take away from Forever Athlete?
That you're more than an athlete. Truly, like the athlete identity that I carry is very, very profound. I'll never not be an athlete. I just won't. And that part of you is still very much part of you. But how do you allow that to not be all of you? Because especially if people's sole identity, they're a professional athlete, or, you know, when I stopped playing soccer, I didn't know who I was. it was like, I've spent my entire life pursuing this sport. I'm grateful that I had a career path and that I knew that I wanted to be a child psychologist. But you hear me talk about soccer long before you hear me talk about therapy. You hear me talk about soccer long before you hear me talk about my business. I just wear it on my sleeve. And so I think that part for people is, if you have an identity, you're more than just that identity. You're all of you. So you're Chasen, you're all of you, a husband, and you're a business owner, and you're a chef, and you're all these things, right? There's such a multitude to who we are. It's like, let's start it human and go from there, as my friend says.
I went to your website and was just reviewing some things. I had been there before, but I wanted to review before our meeting and before the live. And I saw this phrase that I hadn't noticed before: be playful, be purposeful, be passionate, find your ripple. Talk about that.
I don't do things half-assed, Jason. Have we figured this out? I'm glad you're laughing. I just don't. And so I am an intense person, right? I love when people will be like, my God, you just have so much passion. What the hell else are you doing life for? Like, play with the people you want to play with. Pick your teammates, right? Again, everything goes back to me with wanting to play on a team. I want to be a part of people's lives in a way that matters, and in a way that I mean, I swear a lot, and I wanted to just drop the F-bomb for people. So if people just bear with me. If you hear me and I'm not live and we go on a podcast somewhere else, you'll hear me. I am Italian, so, but it's like, what are you doing this thing called life for if you don't care about it? Make your ripple. It's like taking that stone and throwing it in the water and finding how far it goes. So throw it, make your ripple, be powerful, right? It makes me teary-eyed because I'm just like, God, why are you doing this thing if you're not going to care about it? It doesn't mean that your work has to be everything, because clearly I've done all kinds of things in my work career. But what I care about is helping people achieve their dreams, right? So if that's what I care about most, because that's my overarching, like, when I sit back and go, what are my chapters of my life, right? There's soccer, there's school, there's a therapist, there's being in sales, but all of the sales positions I had were service-based positions, not selling product. It was all service. It was all small business. It was all consulting and or business to consumer. And then I worked as an educational recruiter, helping students go to trade schools. So I care about people pursuing their thing. And so why not do that in small business now as a business advisor, right? And helping people achieve their dreams. It's like really boring to be by yourself and stare at yourself all day long. Like, go after it and help other people do the same thing. Like, I don't know any other way to be.
Who is your coaching ultimately geared towards? What's your ultimate client?
So I have 3 pathways that people work with me, primarily because of partnerships. So when I first started my business coaching, I thought it was going to be with small business owners originally. And then when I was giving away my free services in the beginning, I asked people, why did you choose me? What did you like about my coaching? What did you not like? What do you think I should improve? If you were to work with me, what would you think? What is the most beneficial? And 8 out of 10 of those people said, you were an athlete. They were all athletes. It wasn't the business. It was the athlete. And I was like, holy cow. So my first alignment became as an athlete transition coach. So I help a lot of people who are in transition from their sport, whether it's collegiate or professional, and they're exiting or soon to be exiting in some way. And they're trying to figure out, what's my next journey? And they know that I can speak from that level. And I partner with different people who specialize in working with those folks. Then I have the pathway for the entrepreneur. Am I an entrepreneur? I think I have an idea. How do I go about this? I have no idea what being in business is. And I have a 12-week accelerator startup program where I teach you the basics of how to get started from concept to organization to fundamental basics of, can I beta test this concept? I have that. And then I have, for the folks that have been in business for a little while, again, this is small business. This is the little guy. This is the person who's your neighbor, who's got the cleaning company down the street, the electrician who needs to hire employees, but he doesn't know how to do it. I want those folks. Those are the ones that really should have the support. And it's that first year to 5 years that's brutal for small business owners, especially after COVID. You're going through this with your new business, right? It's brutal. It's hard. And if anyone who has survived that first year of business, hats off, because you're already in the elite category of being a business owner. And I want to help you move to that second year, that third year, that fourth year. Can you get to that 5-year mark that finally someone says you are successful? Because that's the SBA's version of, oh, you made it. Okay. So I want to help that person, and I can work with that person or company for 1 hour a week to 15 hours a week. We discuss what your needs are. We discuss how much you can invest. Yes, it is an investment, because I invest not only the 1 hour a week, but I'm also investing time behind the scenes. It's part of what you pay for, of who do I need to put you in contact with? Which people are going to help support you in your business? Do you need a contact for your website? Do you need an upgrade in the automation in your systems? Do you need to find an attorney that you trust? Do you have your ducks in a row and your organizational stuff written down? Policies and procedures should be written down, people. They should not all stay in your head. But as I know you're laughing because you're in your head all the time, but you're like, oh, but I want to help that person. So I truly do bespoke, customized plans for people who are in that pathway, and they can do a 90-minute snapshot where they're like, I'm not ready for a coaching retainer. Let me test this out. They can actually go straight to the snapshot and say, here's what I'm working on right now. Can you help me in 90 minutes kind of organize this? What can I do, et cetera? And that can be applied to a coaching retainer. So I really try to make entrepreneurship accessible to the masses and not feel like you have to hire me as an employee. That's what I like being in the contractual space. You don't have to pay my taxes, and you don't have to pay my health insurance, and you don't have to pay all the other stuff of hiring me as an employee, but you get to take 25 years of business acumen and sit right by you to help you with your blind spots. That's what I love. Service-based businesses. I would not be a good fit for like an e-commerce site, because I don't know how to help someone go through the structural space of doing, say, e-commerce for themselves or drop ship with Amazon and things like that. That's not my area of expertise. But service-based businesses, whether you're a coach like myself, I have a client who's a therapist who's going into the coaching space. She's like, oh my God, you understand me. And so I'm helping her separate two separate sides of her business model so she can do her licensing in California as a therapist and then do different coaching ideas for the mindset training that she's doing for other people. I have a couple people in that sphere. So you can be a solopreneur. You can be an author to be. I have a physician's assistant who is leaving his orthopedic surgeon's practice where he's been for 20 years, and he's doing independent consulting. And he went through my accelerator program. He's like, oh my God, I read your book. And after I read your book, I knew you were the person I needed to hire because you've done it. You're not just talking from theory. And we got him to create everything and literally he's beta testing his first services literally on the 12-week mark. And so it really has to be a helping person. If you're not a helper, I can't, if you're not a giver, if you're not a helper, if you don't love other people, I probably will punch you in the nose through the thing. I just can't. But like, you have to care tremendously about serving other people. So it could be a trade. You could be a mechanic. You could be an HVAC. You could be a real estate agent and say, I really want to branch out. I'm in a brokerage right now. What do you think I could do differently with my sales tactics? Or how do I follow up a little bit differently? What did you do? Kinds of things. So it's really service-based small business owners I would say under 25 employees.
What's one snippet to describe who Kim Brady is?
Oh, a lover and a fighter. I think that sums me up pretty well. I'll fight for anybody and I'll fight for myself. And I love to help people.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with the amazing Kim Brady. Give it up one more time. Give it up, people.
Well, you know that the reason why I'm totally a huge supporter of you is because that's your mantra too. That why do you think I partner with you? You
I love it.
absolutely have to go after helping other people and helping the underdog. Why wouldn't I help you? You help the underdog. You help the little guy. There's absolutely a no-brainer to sit down with you and to be partner with you. I'm so grateful for you.